So I had to kind of figure the money stuff out myself. It's not that my parents didn't try, but we weren't having the types of conversations, the types of mini lessons that really drive these things in that we have found to be successful with children, with education. And just think about it, like the main point in education, generally speaking, is repetitiveness. And so you might think that, and it's just finding different ways to like beat it into your kids' heads, so to speak, but like having those conversations in different ways, in different settings, in different stores is so, so important. So those are the things that we're going to talk about today, is how to help your kids really have a healthy relationship with money. And so the main topics that we're going to talk about what influences their mindset. And really, this is what influences our mindset. So thinking about it from that perspective, it's what are you saying or what are they watching now that is going to indicate where they're going to be in 30 years from now. We are going to talk about what kind of age-appropriate conversations and skills can you be teaching them at different ranges I have. We're going to talk about different tools that you can be using in that sense. And then lastly, but not certainly least, is structuring an allowance program and how allowance can be very beneficial for your kids, whether you're using, there's a lot of different ways to teach it and how we use the allowance as a structure. And then I have some different books for you and or board games just to make learning more fun and to kind of help continue to invest that in other ways besides your conversations you're having with them. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to talk just about the major influences in your kids' lives, of which you have the greatest opportunity as a parent or a guardian. But that does not mean that you will be their biggest influence, okay? If we don't teach our children how to manage their money, social media, advertising, marketing, somebody else certainly will. And I love that quote when I saw it, but absolutely, again, you have the most opportunity, but if we don't take advantage as parents, as guardians, as that important person in our children's lives, they're going to be hearing it from all these other areas and all these other centers that are going to take over the influence for them. So advertising and media, social media, TV, YouTube kids, depending on the age that we're talking about, young kids, we're talking about commercials and then watching YouTube kids and the kids playing with these toys, and then comes out the commercial. Just for reference, my kids are 6 and 7, 18 months apart. So a lot of my references are definitely going to be in their age range, but we work with clients all the way up through teaching their adult children. In fact, that's probably the biggest request that we get, is from parents asking us to help their adult children figure this stuff out. So, because nobody wants to hear it from mom and dad at that age, but that it's done. So, you know, being aware of what's happening there, but taking those as learning opportunities. Everything we're going to talk about today is a learning opportunity that you have with your children. So if you're watching that with them or sitting down with them and that comes up and the kids jump up and they're like, hey, yeah, that's so cool. I really want that. I really want that. It's a great opportunity just to talk about, yeah, that's something that you could buy, or that's something they're playing with and they're trying to get you to buy. That's kind of the purpose of what ads are. And we use those opportunities, and already my son repeats like a little parrot. So they're just trying to get me to buy that, right, mom? Like, well, they're showing you that it's available, yes, and they're going to make it look super, super cool. So all of these different conversations, again, remember that if you're just having ongoing conversations, the skill sets are going to naturally grow and develop as their ages grow. And those conversations will be natural development. Their school friends are going to be another huge opportunity of influence. So being aware of who they're hanging out with, we're always looking at who they're hanging out with based on behavior. But think about that just as far as, you know, if they're heavily invested in branding and being branded of, like, you know, they're always wearing Nike or Adidas, or they have to have the newest and the best, or what those things are, maybe even if they're going over to a friend's house and they have everything. None of those are bad things, but those may be things that they are subject to that are going to have an influence in how they think about money, how they think about getting things and attaining them. Your cultural influences are going to have a huge impact. So we can grow up very similarly in a lot of ways, but where you grow up around the culture, your religion, your faith, your socioeconomic background, all of those different aspects are going to also have a huge impact in just what you're learning, what's being taught. We have a lot of families also that we work with where the culture is that more so than many of us in America, is that we take care of each other, right? Like we support our family no matter what. And so it impacts their budgets to the point where sometimes they're paying for 2 or 3 households just to take care of their family. And so that may impact your children if that's part of your culture, and just kind of understanding that that's going to play a role. And very much their past experiences, or the experiences you are creating for them now, are going to influence how they're thinking as adults. So we as adults are going back to our experiences, are called financial flashpoints, of what happened to you, or what you heard, or what you experienced out of that. And that might look, different for everybody that has the same experience, but it's what happened after that you made that connection. Okay. So we could grow up, I could have myself and someone very similar in very similar households, neighborhoods, friends, we're in the same groups running together. But one of us experiences that our parents talk about money, and they are having these discussions, and it leads to them going and having a meeting, a planning meeting. And it leads to them talking about a budget, and it leads to them having some healthy discussions and all this like merry things that we're making up. And that's how it goes. So then that person says, oh, talking about money is okay. This is cool. That might be a person who grows up in an entrepreneurial household. The next person might be growing up and their parents are talking about money, and all of a sudden they start fighting. And then all of a sudden dad's sleeping on the couch. And then all of a sudden they're divorced. And all of a sudden now that says to them that talking about money leads to divorce. Talking about money leads to a fight. And so it's really dialing into those past experiences for you as an adult, but understanding that what your kids see and hear right now, they may not listen to you, but they are seeing, watching, hearing everything that you are doing. And that is having a huge impact on what connections they're making in their brains about what happens next. So just being very aware of that and how that happens. And I'll always speak very frankly that in our household, we are 2 business owners and entrepreneurs. So we're having these conversations all the time, and we have to really guard ours backwards, because my son thinks it's really normal that like people just go out and buy trucks. And so my husband has a landscaping and construction firm. And so we talk about our equipment account, and we're planning these things a lot of times, but we might be having dinner conversation about going out and buying that truck. He thinks that's normal. So we have to really watch and guard our conversations in the other direction based on his age. So that's really important. And then last but certainly not least, again, just books and what they're reading. And that might be not just nonfiction, but fictional books about what they're reading and how those characters are spending and what they're doing and the vacations that they're going on. All of those things are going to influence how a kid thinks. So most importantly, though, is how you are speaking and what they are hearing and interpreting. So words matter. We talk about that in business all the time in a lot of different aspects. And as I said, and I know that Greg is a big fan of the saying also that more is caught than taught. They may not listen to what you are asking them to do, but they are hearing it all. So on the left-hand side, we have some things here that are really common. We've heard these growing up. We grew up with them. Our parents said to them. They're the first things that we're going to reach out and usually say. And we're going to be like, yeah, we can't afford that right now. Or no, we can't get that. But it's so important to really, for your sake and for theirs, to really reframe those things. And so that's going to look different at different ages and depending on the conversations you're having or have started having with them. But with kids, and you're going to the store and they want everything immediately, and they're like, hey, can we get this? Can we get this? No, why not? Why not? It's so easy to go straight to the, no, we're not buying that. That's such a waste, or I can't afford it. One of those two. But a simple reframe, if you just stop and think for 1 second and just let them know, like, yeah, that's super cool, isn't it? That's not on our list today, but maybe we can get that the next trip. Maybe we can plan for that. It's planting these seeds for them about planning, delayed gratification, savings. These things are bigger lessons than what they really are, right? So, very common, we can't do whatever. We can't go on vacations. We have to pay off debt. reframing that to we have some other goals right now. Like, yeah, we would love to go on vacation. How about if we make a plan to do Disney in a couple years after we finish this goal? Now, again, that conversation could look very different for the 8-year-old. That's the 8-year-old goal. Your 16-year-old is going to have a little bit deeper of a conversation with that. And then last but not least, I hear all the time, just like on TV shows, you kids are going to keep us broke. But that really is sending a signal that their actions are affecting you, when in fact, it's actually our choices as parents. I have a good friend and mentor who recently said that it's not kids that are expensive, it's parents' choices that are expensive. And I believe that. I really do. I love my kids and I want them to have absolutely everything, but more than anything, I just want them to be good human beings who are productive adults eventually, with great hearts. And when we really look at, what are we actually giving them, we want to give them these tools that help them along with those things. But, it's really realizing that it's our choices for what we are saying yes to or what we want them to have that is making them either a quote unquote expensive child or, relatively inexpensive. So there's no bad or good. There is just the fact that your choices will have consequences. We just have some general rules as we're having these we're going to delve into like some of those specific conversations next. But like before we get into those specifics, like here are the general rules that we have for teaching kids about money. And the first is being open, honest, and transparent to the age that they can understand and to that level they can understand. Again, your 4-year-old does not need to know that you make $100,000 a year, right? They don't need to go out because they don't have no filter. And they'll go out and tell the whole town what you make or where you make it or anything like that. But just having those open, honest conversations that, and if it's something that you don't think they're ready to hear, they'll fully understand, just be honest and say, that's really not something that we need to discuss right now. I don't think you're going to quite get it. So let's just talk about something you do understand. Let's bring this back a minute. Next one is absolutely to practice what you preach, because again, they're watching. So if you are, I don't know, we've all been guilty of this one, but like if you hit the Amazon button like every single day and there's a package showing up every single day, they are not going to understand delayed gratification, okay? So maybe if that is something you're trying to teach them, maybe you check out once a week and you have a package day that things arrive that you plan for. So again, planting these seeds about how you speak is going to start to relate into the bigger things as you teach them. Using all of those moments as teaching opportunities. I love the grocery store, and we don't go into them very often anymore just because online ordering is too convenient. But I use the grocery store as great teaching opportunities. We go in for like 5 things once a week. It's just inevitable. And now that my kids are big enough to read numbers, we use that as an opportunity to say, okay, well, here's this one and this one. How much does this cost? What's that number? Which one do you think is bigger? So we're just talking about numbers at this point in this age, but that's going to translate into the comparison. Kids are not really taught to do the negotiations and comparisons and look to say the quality is different in these two things, or how do they compare? Like maybe I can get the same end result for less money over here. Is that true? So everything can be a lesson. Counting money, if you happen to have change on the counter and they say, oh, money, hey, yeah, let's count this. Let's talk about it. Depending on the age, 4 or 5, it's going to go over their head. But you're starting the conversation, repetitiveness, once again. If they're 10, 11, 12, great practice, count it out. Nobody knows coins and change anymore. So, if you are paying your bills, if you're doing a budget, all of those things, again, we'll talk about the specific ages, but absolutely involve your kids and treat them like an intern. And then again, just as you are making some financial decisions, incorporate them as much as you can. So this might look like planning a vacation. Hey, we're planning a vacation and where we want to go. Again, younger kids, it might be like, we can go for 5 days. What are some cool things that you want to do if we can fit it into, our budget? An older kid, it might be like, hey, we have XYZ amount of dollars planned for vacation. what would you like to make sure you do? How about you research how much that costs? Great. You want to go to Disney, you want to go to Star Wars Land, build a robot. You're 14, 16 years old. I need you to research the cost of that, and let's make sure we plan it. So you can build these in so many different ways to get them to have some buy-in, but they're real life lessons that kids aren't often taught before they go to college. I know that I, for one, was so excited to go to college. I mean, I was out the door, 18, Penn State, I jumped, and I love my mom, I love my dad. But at the same point, like, I did not have these lessons. They were like, slap me in the face, because my mom did everything for us. She was a stay-at-home mom. She loved it. She cherished it, and it was amazing. But I wish that we would have had some of these real life lessons as we were growing up. So the next one is, we're going to kind of really talk about some of these specific stages that we have, age-appropriate conversations and skills. So starting with the youngest, we're kind of looking at that age of, like, again, 4 to 7. It's all give or take here. Anything less than 4, there's really very little comprehension. You can still start with some of these basic things, though, just like sharing. So it's not the act, it's the sharing that will lead to conversations about giving. The conversations about giving lead to our values, and we get to instill our values in our kids by some of these things, if that's really important to you. And so you might be talking about sharing at the ages of 4, 5, 6, but at 7, 8, 9, your kids are often going, or they're coming to church with you, and they want to give some of their money. Now you're talking about the money aspect of it. So they all do, they kind of build on each other if you're starting young. I know my kids are VBS this week, and they're having like a competition of who can gather the most money. And so my kids were super excited. My daughter went and grabbed her Tooth Fairy money from last week. She's like, I'll give my Tooth Fairy money. And my son was all excited about the paintball they're doing, so he grabbed $10. And they had different motivations, but it's not about the amounts at this point. It's really just about understanding that there's other things to do with your money besides spending it and besides saving it. Again, all of these, where the money comes from, just talking about how work, when you work, you get paid, or if we sell something, or when we go to the store, we need to pay for something. All of these things are real life, that I've watched my children ask these questions that, as an adult, like, this is second nature. I mean, this is what you do, right? Like, this is how habits are built. They're just things, it's life. But listening to the questions that they come up with, it's really interesting then, and like how the conversations have developed. You can absolutely start allowance at the ages of, 4, 5, 6. And we'll talk about the different ways to do allowance, whether or not you associate that with actual chores or not chores, and benefits, pros and cons of each. Just discussions of needs and wants too. Great discussion starting at this age, and helping them to reframe. I need more toys, or I need that toy. I really understand you really love that toy, and you want that toy, and moving on with that conversation. And then I've got a few others, but again, growth and abundance mindsets, that's really back into that. Like, I need more toys, or I don't have the piece and the part that I need, Mom. And just helping them reframe at that point that, I understand that you really, really want that piece and part to make your set complete, but isn't it cool how many Legos you have? Or isn't it cool how much this you have? Let's count them, and getting them into that I have gratitude, abundance mindset. It will start to take on its own little pieces. They will catch themselves. My son corrected me the other day on a need and a want. And again, he's 7.5. He said, no, Mom, you want that. I don't even remember what it was, but that moment is sticking with me. So next we have 8 to 12. And again, these ages are just really rough estimates. I mean, your child may or may not be different maturity developments, but at this point, though, if you've been especially having some of those conversations, now we're ready to talk about more details, like what is a bank? Taking them into the bank to make deposits with money that's sitting in their piggy bank. So take that $10, $15, $20, let them go up to the teller, deposit it. They'll always give them a sucker, a toy, a Frisbee, something else to make it really cool experience. And then let them know the bank is holding that money for you for a later date. My kids have been seeing ATMs all over. We went to a carnival in Saxonburg last week, and he's like, that just gives you money? Like, well, you remember we went to the bank. So you start making these associations. We went to the bank, we put the money in, If we have money in the bank, yes, we can use this machine to go take money out. So simple as that. That's all we need at these ages. Helping them to set goals. So that'll build that savings muscle. Savings is one of the core things that we can help them do, because savings will lead to it's not really savings or how much, it's the delayed gratification. That delayed gratification is what is going to help us with investing, with the growth, with future wants, with freedom. It's all of those other pieces that are going to be tied to that. So help them set goals that if, again, either whether they're earning allowance or birthday money, they really want Roblox, Minecraft, whatever, a game, a skateboard. Absolutely. That sounds like a great goal. Let's make a chart. Let's keep track of it. How much do you have saved? And as soon as you have that amount saved, we'll look it up. We can go to the store and you can buy it. My niece did that at 10 years old with her skateboard, and she's almost 13, and she still talks about that experience. So, I mean, it's just really cool. They get a lot of ownership. They get a lot of confidence as well from these experiences, which also continue to carry through with them. So it's definitely so much more than money. Spending money on valued items too. These are absolutely another, important conversation, like how much do you want that thing? Let's not make a decision right now. Let's think about this and maybe come back tomorrow or go to the store a different day. We don't want you to just buy just to buy. So those are some of the most important and really light ones we can be having around these ages. And now we move into the big kids, some of the fun conversations, some of the harder conversations, all of these different things. I love the tween age. The 13 to 15-ish is really, I guess that's really teen, but that is probably one of my favorites to really get into the money management with them. And this is where we start having the conversations and letting them take control of their money even. So we're having these kinds of conversations about, hey, what do you think about getting a job? And, you might be starting to talk about saving for a car. You might be starting to talk just about entrepreneurship. And even at that, they might want a lemonade stand or pet sitting or something else even earlier in those ages. I know my kids do. Talking to them about debt. It's 13 to 15. It's a big conversation, but it's an important one that we can take on a little level. Just what is a credit card? What does that do? How does it work? What is a debit card? How are they different? Neither are bad, just understanding how they are going to work and how to make them work well. But more importantly, I really love to give kids at this age, whatever you're willing to spend on them, and let them do it. See it, touch it, feel it. So this is where I have some of the budgeting tools and apps, like something like Greenlight might come into handy at this age, but cash is still king. They touch it, they see it, it goes, they don't get it back. There is a mental connection with cash, and studies have shown that when you pay with cash, it physically hurts like you're getting kicked. I think that's pretty cool. But because the whole concept is you pay with a card, you swipe, you put it back in your pocket, nothing lost. Not until you get the credit card transaction, the statement a month later, and you're like, ooh, that was rough. When you pay with cash, you give your $20 bill over and you get nothing back or just a few dollars, some coins. And so it hits differently. So this might look like at this age, hey, I want to go to the movies with friends. Great, movie ticket, soda, popcorn, you're $40 in. You might give them the $40, $30, $20, whatever you're willing, if they were going with you, and say, here you go. You are responsible for making the payment and making your choices. When that's gone, it's gone. Even bigger, as you do some of those small ones and they're going out with friends, say, hey, mom, I need 20 bucks. It's starting to get okay, for the week, I would be willing to give you $40. You need to manage that both Friday and Saturday, or, over the weekend. And then even bigger is back to school shopping. If you're going to be spending $500 or $600 or whatever, $200, it doesn't matter. It's kind of figuring out what you would be willing to spend and then teaching them that they get to go and do it. So you are in control of your back to school shopping this year. And let's sit down and figure out what you need. And then you might want to look up and start looking up online. Obviously, these conversations have changed in 20 years a lot, but start looking up online how much those things that you want are. So you want the brand new Nike Air Jordans, you look them up and the kid sees that they're $127 and they have to do this math. And so as they start adding up the things they really want, they get to make those choices and see. And again, we go back to that earlier comparison of, again, two different brands, but you can then have these conversations if you're out in the stores, like, okay, that shirt's $60. What if we went to look at another store to see if we can get a similar shirt for $20, or maybe we could get a sale and buy two for, whatever. So those kinds of lessons and conversations at that tween age are so impactful because now they're managing it for real on small levels that are very, very controlled. The green light card, as I'll have, a little bit later, but it fits in right now, is a really great, like very popular tool that you can put those controls on. But again, it still doesn't quite take over some of those lessons when you give them money in cash to spend and they see it visually going out. Ages 15 to 18 and up, we're having, again, some of those same things, even bigger levels now. Now you might be giving them how much at 17 and 18 when you're getting ready to maybe send them off to college or technical school or something else. You might be then giving them how much you would spend on them in a month. If you've been doing this all the way, it won't be such large jumps. But at that point, now you might go to a 2-week budget or a monthly budget and say, okay, last month I spent $500 on all of your things, or we spent, this combined. I'm going to give this to you. Let's write down all the things we spent this on: gas, fuel, insurance, cell phone, fun money, eating out, whatever it was with friends. And now you need to make your decisions. I'm going to help you. We're going to check in along the way. And so you're just kind of taking that rope and kind of continuing to pull it back from them. Also at this time, we are now starting to talk about the expense of cars and vehicles, and not just like buying a vehicle, but let's talk about the insurances, the taxes for those who live in other states and have property taxes associated. We're talking about just fuel, maintenance, tires, all of those. Even though they're not paying for these now, it will eliminate that shock when they're 22, 23, 25, and they get hit in the face that tires are $800 to $1,000 for their car, truck, or Jeep. This is absolutely, we should be talking about credit scores at this point and how they work, what impacts them, taxes on the light basis. Like, why are you taxed? We already do mommy tax with ice cream, treats, all of those things. I get first lick, I get first bite. We call it mommy tax, daddy tax. They know it. And they don't like it. Differences of renting and owning. And honestly, that conversation, some of these can come a lot earlier, just about the basics of it. Like, what does it mean? And what are the differences? At that age, you're starting to get into pros and cons and what do they where are they thinking about, and just kind of gauging those longer term conversations for them. You might be talking about costs of kids, marriage, insurances, warranties, all of those bigger things that nobody really discusses on a real life level until they happen to you at 22 to 25 years old. This is a time when they are still very well nested that we can really kind of protect it. And we can have a great place for them to fall. They're not going to fall 30, 40, 50, $300,000 in debt like we do work with a lot of clients. And I was personally in myself. Those things just become very overbearing. They have a lot of weight on your shoulders. They cause a lot of stress. They cause all of the issues in our relationships. So you're setting them up for all of those things you really want for them by having these conversations with them now. Some of the most popular tools that we have for kids that we work with and our clients use under those ages of 8, a lot of times we're just using piggy banks. I like to give save spend jars. We have ones that are like, they're just wrapped, they're 3 next to each other so they can kind of look at them, they can gauge them, see what's in them. But you can also just get mason jars, put a little sticky note on it, wrap it up, have them different jars, or different things that mean something to you if it's not give, save, and spend. But as they're getting older, right now, obviously, there are a lot of popular apps. And so Greenlight is probably hands down the most popular with the most control that you can give your kids in and out, kind of managing what they're doing, seeing, stop them, give them more money for different chores and allowances. It's inexpensive. I think it's $5 a month maybe. And then it goes up from there because there are investing in different other platforms you can use to teach them. But for the $5 a month, there's a huge return on investment for kids, who are especially getting into that 12, 13, 14 age and starting to go out on their own with friends maybe. FAMZoo is another one very similar, as is GoHenry and Current. They all have different pros and cons to them. But if you have kids who are on those older ages, there's, Current is actually one of the banks. I forget which bank, actually might be Current Bank, that uses their app. That was one really initiated that teens that goes in there, and it really helps them to kind of get those bigger pictures. But you can research all of these. They're all very popular. They're all vetted, and they have different pros and cons. But I am going to say hands light, green light's pretty much there for most people. Is it? I had no idea. Learn something new every day. Well, I guess that makes it that much more that I need to be a proponent of it. So I love it. Next, we have allowance. And allowance is always a hot topic, very debated on, should we tie it to chores? Should we not tie it to chores? And I don't think it matters. What matters is the act of you're giving them money to learn to manage in small amounts. We're teaching them saving. We're teaching them delayed gratification. We're teaching them spending. We're teaching them giving. This is your opportunity to use allowance to instill your values into your children in those ways. Like I said early on, like it's just finding different conversations and different ways around it and what's going to hit for them. But this is your opportunity really to just help them learn how to manage it in different ways. So the three main types that there are is the one where it's tied to chores. So we are in that theory teaching real life that you work, you get money, you don't work, you don't get money. And so that's absolutely one option. The next option is that it's not going to be tied at all. You specifically just get money as an allowance, and we're going to teach you how to use that and manage that. Again, nothing wrong with that either. If you want to have chores, are just part of the family. We are part of the family, and this is why we do what we do. And there's obviously then a hybrid approach. You can have where some chores, are because we're part of the family, and some you have an opportunity to earn more money or to earn money for. So you have to find what fits your values and what fits your world, what you really want to teach them. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong about it, but I do believe in allowance. I do think it's really important. So again, there should always just be structure to it. The worst thing you can do is give an allowance and give zero structure. So sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. That's teaching them nothing. If anything, that's going to actually reverse some of the things that you're trying to teach and instill, just about that consistency. So we want to make sure that we set up some structures around it. We want to be very consistent. So why are you getting it? Talking about it. Our kids get their allowance on Sundays. We talk about it. Why did we get it? What did they do all that week? Ours are tied very much to chores. What did they do? What didn't they do? How could they improve? Like on their age level, but like, hey, you did such a great job on eating all your healthy vegetables this week, but you did not make your bed very well. So I need you to work on practicing that this week coming up. And those are just the basic things that we're having on talking about that. But that's real life, again, of like prepping them for those things. Come up with the amount. How much are they getting? And or how is that going to change? Is it going to go down if they don't do all of their chores? Is it going to go up, or what is attached to different things? So have a very organized system. It can be super basic. Ours is just on paper that is attached to our wall. But they understand, and there's a way to go back to say what's happening. Mom and dad have the same answers, and we don't have the different answers or rules on how it's going to work. How much they're getting. I work with a couple different professionals who have different ideas. One that I liked a lot, but seems a lot in a little one, is just however old they are, they give them that much per week or per month. Just again, depending on your personal budget, what you can afford, how you want to teach them and spending. So if a kid is 3, they get $3 every week or every month, and or dividing it around 4. And so they know when their raises are coming, basically. Coming up with, it might vary based on that amount. It might vary based on your method, should I say. So if you're going to tie it to different things, you might want to know where you max out and where they can't like get you for $50 when you really only want to spend 20. So just have some rules and expectations around that. Set up your system to help them track what they're going to be doing with it. So whether that's, again, an actual paper budget, whether that's jars or separate accounts in your bank accounts, different buckets that they're using inside of their bank or inside of like Greenlight or different apps, any of those can work, but just help them understand where they're coming from. So again, our kids have real bank accounts at their ages. They only see those about once or twice a month that they actually go to the bank. They don't know what's in there and it doesn't matter to them. They just know they went to the bank and they have money. More at that age, again, younger 8, it's really about the jars, the piggy bank, the things that they can see, but understanding where they're putting it. So if you get $5, I need you to put 3 into your spend, 2 into your save, and 1 into your give. That didn't add up, but you know where I'm going. So help them with how much you're going to help them do or what your expectations are. So they don't learn to just make it and then spend it, but they learn then right there that I've got to build that savings muscle up. It all goes along with those goals and things. And then again, just that consistency around when they get it. So Fridays might be your paydays, whatever works for you, but just don't be willy-nilly. Just like everything else, kids need structure. They like rules, whether they think they do or they don't. So these rules just help them to know what their expectations are and when to get it, and they will call you out. So we kind of built this into earlier, but just allowing them to kind of control their own money in those age ranges of 13 to 18. If you start it early enough, again, you can do all the different levels and just keep letting your rope out a little bit more as it goes. But it's just so important that it gives them that control, but it also gives them a lot of confidence building in how they are managing and handling that. They can get super excited when they have money left at the end of the month or the end of their weekend, like, ooh, what do I get to do with this? Like, that's real life. When you have money left at the end of your budget in the month, you're like, ooh, what can we do? Where should we go? What's in our vacation fund? So allow them to control their own money, especially at those ages. And then these are just some different resources that I have between the books and things here. Age appropriate wise, I mean, again, they're just kind of teaching little basics. $1 a penny, how much and how many is probably one of my favorites. It's just a fun little one to talk about with the kids. As a Profit First professional, I automatically got Mike Michalowicz's My Money Bunnies, and I think it's great as well. I love Mike Michalowicz. I love the way he writes, so he translated it for kids very well. It's definitely on that older side though of like 6, 7, 8, I do believe. And that little bit older one, the Project Startup #1, Eat Bugs, was probably one of my niece's favorites. And that's really just starting to get into even to entrepreneurship. If they are like all lemonade stand and babysitting and pet sitting and raise money, like that's a really great book for them. And then the bigger kids, these are some of my favorite ones. Hands down, again, the Latte Factor is probably my favorite. I didn't include it on here, but there is a guy, Luke Villerman, that wrote, he's got a couple, but his name's Luke Villerman, and it's about a tortoise and a hare. So he builds in all these strategies. It's really good for probably that like 12 to 15. So if you have kids in that age, I really like it. Again, I forget the name, but he talks a lot about, you got the tortoise and the hare. They both want to buy a bicycle and they're on their way. So one of them is a very impulsive spender and one of them is just a very slow saver. And it's really about the lessons within that he's teaching. He goes everything from banks to investing. And that's why I say it's definitely 10, 11, 12 and up. But it does get a little too juvenile at some point. So that's a really great all-in-one as well, and kind of teaches that delayed gratification more than anything. But if you have older kids who are going to school soon or going off on their own or living on their own, the Latte Factor, Debt-Free Degree if they're going to college is great. And I Want More Pizza is a really good one that we've had a couple of like 21, 22-year-olds say that they really loved. So. And then for you as parents, we have a totally different set though. John Lanza is probably one of my favorites. He has a podcast called The Art of Allowance. He's got this book. I love them all. I think that they're great. He interviews different financial experts. So I'm a huge fan of his. Obviously, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a classic. Smart Money, Smart Kids, just with Rachel Cruz and Dave Ramsey. They're definitely have coined in the expertise area there. These are all the really great. And sometimes when you just read something, we need to hit it in different ways. And that's why I always like to give a lot of options, just depending. You may or may not resonate with one, but try something else that can really help you. And that's the same for financial literacy for you, right? Like you may not resonate with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but then try Ramit Setha. I can never say his name right. And if you don't like him, try Dave Ramsey. If you don't identify with him, try Susie Orman. But there's dozens and they all say the same thing at the end of the day. And that's the same as these books, but they're just giving you different tools that you might hear in a different way or that your kids might hear in a different way. And then last we do have is games. So how can we make it fun as a family night? And how can we teach them without knowing we're teaching them at all? These are in order of like your age groups, kind of just like what might be more appropriate. But, you know, playing shopping with real coins for your younger kids is awesome. Like, hey, I need you to go for shopping for bananas. And then they come back with the bananas from there. And you're like, okay, that's going to be 25 cents. And let them go over to like a pile of coins, find a quarter and bring it back to you. Super, super easy way just to get them engaged. The allowance game, money bags, and Monopoly, definitely still in that younger. You can be teaching them. We played Monopoly as kids, but I got no lessons out of it. But if you're having these conversations, talk about something. Talk about Boardwalk and how it's so cool and everybody wants to own Boardwalk and it's the most expensive, but the biggest return. I mean, that might be like a 12-year-old, conversation, but it's not even that they will hear everything or understand everything, but if you keep using the same phrases, like we have different ways that we speak about health, about finances, about different parts of our life, technology, there's coin phrases in each one of those. So if you start using coin phrases like return on investment or the power of your dollar, your buying power, your purchasing power, if you start using those things, even when they're little, they will eventually pick up on what they are and what they mean, and they will make their own connections, which is the best thing that we want them to do. Nobody wants to learn from mom and dad. I mean, your young ones do, but your tweens, your teens, they kind of think that they know everything better. So you want to put it in these ways where they're going to start picking those things up on their own, and they're going to make that connection like, oh, okay. So these are some great games that you can be playing as well. Again, have fun with it. We talked about a lot of things today, but truthfully, if you just take one or two of these things, if you take a game and start playing a money game with your kids, that's awesome. If you get them a book that you read to them, that's awesome if they're younger. If you start, older kids and you start just giving them $20 a week and tell them like what your expectations are and how they manage it, that's awesome. All we can do is build on some of the tools that you're given and keep building and working on it to make it and just help them build that healthy relationship with money. I think that we all wish that we had younger, or most of us anyway. So I'll leave that up if we have any questions.
Again, if you have additional questions, please go out, reach out to Kristen, go to Financial Fitness Coaching. It's a phenomenal resource, the website. She's a great follow. I've learned a lot of tips from her on social media. It's a great way. For those of you that are on as clients, just again, a reminder, keep your eyes and ears peeled. We're released on Oktoberfest, and we're doing the second Wednesday of every month. For those of you who are not clients, feel free to come on. We have all kinds of different seminars. If the seminar, like this one, like maybe you don't have kids, says somebody has kids. If you know a small business owner that's tired of breaking, like have you ever got a small business owner that's just sick of breaking even? They tell them their business run them, it's this Frankenstein, it's box they created. Send them that, you can forward the emails, you can join our email list, go to our website, connect with us, follow us on social media. So we will be releasing parts of this on social media too. So again, follow us. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.